What happened. In Carolina, what happened was that they hired Frank Reich.
Oh
I'm
boy.
going to be honest with you two guys. The Panthers have needed two things for half a decade now: head coach and quarterback. Frank Reich was the fall guy in Indianapolis, and quite clearly, firing your head coach after you force him to start Sam Ellinger, and then against the Patriots they have a million sacks, and then to take the blame out on the offensive line, you fire the head coach to literally replace him with Jeff Saturday after Bill Belichick's defense annihilates your offensive line, which is rapidly aging, not very good. Frank Reich was really impressive in Indianapolis. Andy, first year with Andrew Luck, top five offense, and since then he was constantly adapting. And Philadelphia, he's inheriting Chip Kelly's team with Doug Peterson. They evolved. They won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles after Carson Wentz tore his ACL. Frank Reich is a really good play caller. Yeah, he maybe lost Jim Irsay, one of the worst owners in football's trust, because Irsay is, maybe a loose clock upstairs, but he's one of the best offensive minds in football, and a former quarterback that took the first snaps under center in Carolina. I feel like for the Panthers, a team that's probably looking to draft a quarterback in the next couple of years, unless Matt Corral becomes a pretty good player. We'll see what happens. He misses rookie season. Frank Reich is the ultimate hire. A guy that's well respected by his players, can adapt and really maximize his rushing attacks. A year ago, the Colts, with not the best offensive line, they're injury hampered, had the best running game in football, Jonathan Taylor. I think with Deontay Foreman and a couple of these different quarterbacks, we'll see who they go with. I feel like it might be Matt Corral. They can have a pretty dynamic rushing attack to go alongside DJ Moore. And when you talk about his staffs, people he's employed, Matt Eberflus, defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon, who's not becoming head coach maybe, he's the Eagles' defensive coordinator. They're playing the Super Bowl. And Nick Sirianni. And Sirianni was pretty upset when his mentor got fired because Reich is a really good coach. Is he top 10? Probably not, but he's one of the better guys in the league. There's no two ways about it. I gave the Broncos an A before. I gave the Texans, I'll give them an A. For the Panthers, I'm giving the Frank Reich hire a solid B plus. He's a proven offensive mind, and when you're a franchise who struggled with stability, there's not much more you can ask for, and surely nothing you can complain about here.
Well, Frank Reich is a leader of men, and he's shown that in his time with Indianapolis. Shame how he got let go. Nick Sirianni had every right to be angry about it, and I mean, he showed it in beating the Colts that one week, even though it wasn't by much, but they did win. But yeah, Frank Reich, like I said, he's a leader, and the Carolina Panthers have been looking for the right head coach for a while now. Matt Rule was clearly not the guy for the job. The question does remain the same thing for Houston. Who's the guy under center? Can that guy elevate your team? Because it's awesome to have a good head coach, but if you don't have the guys around you to elevate and to take what you're to practice what you're preaching, then it doesn't mean anything at all. So I really do hope that he does put together a good team because the Panthers towards the end of the season started to look like the team that Brandon was hyping up in the beginning of the season. They started to show a little bit of that bright spots, the promising defense, the young talent. Now it's just finding somebody to maximize that, and I really do hope. I'm not going to project and say he will be that guy because I don't know how confident I truly am in the Panthers organization, but I do hope Frank Reich is the guy for the job.
I mean, it's hard for me to get excited or anything for this hire. Good for Frank Reich. I think it is a good hire. I believe Steve Wilkes deserves a job, in my opinion. But that's neither here nor there now. Again, Justin said what I was going to say. They still have to find their quarterback. And if we know one thing is Frank Reich struggled finding himself a quarterback in Indianapolis. So that's going to be a tough test. Sam Donald's not the guy. I don't care what anybody says. I've seen enough. I've seen what he can do. He's not the guy. Okay. He can be a good, solid backup quarterback, and that's fine. Other than that, they're in a better position than Houston, but other than that, I don't know. That division's wide open pretty much since Tom's leaving Tampa Bay. So we'll see. I guess the NFC South is going to become the real weakest divisions.
You look at the coaches in that division. Dennis Allen, who, we'll see. Big year
No,
for him up and
we've
coming.
seen, we have seen, we have seen,
Todd Bowles
we've seen.
and Arthur Smith. Quite clearly, Frank Reich's the best coach in that division. They had the
Yeah,
ninth overall pick. I hyped up earlier Anthony Richardson. Oh, man. Would Anthony Richardson be
Dude, this
great
freaking guy is so.
with Frank Reich?
This
He's the
guy's
best quarterback, I
obsessed
think,
with
out of this
Anthony
draft class.
Richardson. Who are you
He's
listening to, John? Who are you listening to about this guy?
This
Who's
kid is
feeding you
special.
this information?
this is what do you mean?
There's somebody feeding you this information that you're
No.
watching or something.
I love him. I watch
I
more
don't
and
think you.
more.
I love him.
I think if he goes to the right team, Brian Dable, Frank Reich, he's going to be one of the better quarterbacks in the league, and I think arguably the best quarterback in this draft. I'm not quite sure Bryce Young being 5'11", 5'10", if he is going to be the best one. We'll see long term.
I don't like any of the quarterbacks in this draft. I really don't. I can't get on. Can't get on.
Brandon, you don't get on many young quarterbacks, and when you talk about Carson Wentz, look
Big
at the
Joe Burrow,
difference
Trevor
between
Lawrence guy. What are you talking about?
look at the difference between Wentz in Indianapolis and Washington. Then look at Matt Ryan, who he was 500 with. Most people viewed Matt Ryan as one of the worst quarterbacks, worst stars in the league, and he was 500 with him until Irsay literally forced him to bench him for Sam Ellinger. Philip Rivers, he got the most out of him. Jacoby Brissett, same thing to be
Philip
said.
Rivers wasn't shot, and Philip Rivers was actually still a solid starting quarterback.
17th best
better
quarterback in the
team at
league.
that
Nothing to
time.
write home about. You almost won a playoff game with Philip Rivers.
Don't disrespect Philip Rivers.
We're being honest here. Sometimes the truth hurts. The Panthers have negative $8 million in cap space. They have a good defense, one up and coming offensive line, and a pretty good coach. And in that division, that's going to be enough next season probably to win. And if Tom Brady's surely not in Tampa Bay, I think they could probably win 9 or 10 games and take a pretty step forward, build off the momentum they end of the year with. And we're going to see what they do with the 9th overall pick. Could really go
10 games
quarterback.
is tough. That's tough.
Or do they continue to build up the offensive line? Because as we saw this last Sunday, the offensive line is pretty key. You're not winning a Super Bowl without it. And if you get that before the quarterback, that guy under center is going to have a much easier job.
Yes, sir.